In his final op-ed, Congressman Lewis said, "You must study and learn the lessons of history because humanity has been involved in this soul-wrenching existential struggle for a very long time." Now, some may take those as just wise words from a civil rights icon. But for me, I take that statement as a personal charge because I now have the privilege, I have the blessing of representing not only the birthplace of the civil rights movement in Montgomery, Alabama, but also the birthplace of John Lewis, the man who often referred to himself as the boy from Troy, which is a small town in Pike County, Alabama, which is now in District 2. A district, I might add, that exists in its current format today because of the Voting Rights Act, the same very Voting Rights Act that John Lewis risked his life to see enacted. But those words in that final op-ed, to me, they are a charge to not forget where we have come from or what we have been through as a nation, but also a charge to be vigilant and to commit to ensuring that we never go back to certain days in this country's past. But that charge is becoming increasingly more important by the day. It seems that every day there's another effort to set us back to times we thought we were beyond as a nation. From watching the current administration walk back school desegregation, consent decrees, to the closing of civil rights offices across the federal government, to straight-on attacks to efforts to ensure that the playing field is balanced for everybody, regardless of what you look like. You know, it seems to me that we are forgetting where we came from as a nation, forgetting the times where people who look like me did not have the opportunity or the privilege to live in the same America as people who don't look like me. And these are not just efforts by this current administration to overtly roll back equal protections and access, but even in this very body, where just recently we passed legislation that imposes student loan borrowing caps on Americans who want to be doctors or lawyers. And those caps are less than the average cost of those degrees. Now, to some people, they may say, well, that's just race neutral. Well, those lessons of history that John Lewis was speaking of, they teach us a different lesson. They teach us that in practice, what that means is fewer black people will be able to become lawyers. Fewer black people will be able to become doctors. That means fewer opportunities. That means fewer black parents can tell their kids that they can literally be anything they want to when they grow up. They must now caveat that by saying, if we can afford it, you can be a doctor. If our credit is good enough, you may be able to be a lawyer. But that same history that clarifies what those recent actions mean, that same history tells us that no matter how dark the days may be now, no matter how dark the motives or the efforts are, no matter how dark the outcomes may be, that those spaces can never be as dark as they once were because the light of progress made hangs forever in those spaces. The light of John Lewis hangs forever in those spaces. And so this is not a moment of complacency. We cannot afford to be complacent in this moment. We must aggressively continue the fight, as my colleagues have so eloquently laid out here tonight. We must continue the fight for justice, learning from our past and building upon the legacy of John Lewis and others, which demands that in moments like this, we stand firm, we keep the faith, and we continue the struggle. I yield back.